Hello and welcome to another episode of A Friendly Film Take, the film vodcast, brought to you by Film News Blitz with me, Dan Lawrence, where I'm joined by a friendly face to chat about films in a friendly manner. Even if it's chatting, even if it's debating, it's all friendly on A Friendly Film Take. And I'm joined by the returning friendly face, Joe Matthews. Joe.
It's me. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to get into this brilliant film.
Yes, the film in question, one battle after another, Paul Thomas Anderson's latest and maybe one of his greatest films. But that's saying something. It's going up there, Boogie Nights, There Will Be Blood, The Master. Paul Thomas Anderson's good at making films, turns out. And he's made another good one. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get into that, let's have a little chit-chat about maybe some other films that we've seen recently. Joe? What else have you been seeing at the cinema recently?
Well, I've actually, in the cinema, I watched The Long Walk on Friday, which was interesting. Without spoiling anything, I think my main takeaway was that it was all right, but I think it is one of those books that maybe doesn't transition into being a film all that well. Because I know I've read some of Stephen King's short stories and stuff, and obviously he's a great writer.
Yep.
I just think as a film, maybe it didn't work. But then the other things I've been watching, for some reason I've been in a bit of a trilogy phase recently.
Okay.
I've watched all of the Lord of the Rings, I think for the second or third time now, over the last week and a half. And then after that, I've watched not quite as revered a trilogy, but the Ocean's trilogy.
Okay.
Ocean's 11, 12, and 13, which I really like. They get a lot of stick, but I really like them. So yeah, that's what I've been watching recently. What about yourself?
Right. Well, what have I been watching? I've been watching mainly stuff at home actually, other than one battle after another that we could be getting onto. So I watched a Apple TV Plus film called All of You, which stars Brett Goldstein and Imogen Poots. And Brett Goldstein, I think, co-wrote the film as well, and is obviously well known as being Roy Kent, Ted Lasso, and also being one of the co-creators of Shrinking, which is another great series. And it was like a rom-com, but set in a world where you could take a test and it would tell you who your soulmate was. And like Brett Goldstein's character, his like best friend from uni, she takes the test, but then like you can kind of tell he's in love with her, and then like sort of it points towards them having a thing. I thought the film was going to be something that wasn't. It ended up being something that was kind of breaking conventions of traditional rom-coms, and being quite ambiguous in the end. And I just didn't really get it. I think also, as someone who's in a long, well, I'm married. Like, I think from that headspace, looking at the film gave me a different. Maybe if I was like single Pringle, I would have looked at the film completely differently. But I don't know. But I admire the film for its premise. It was well acted. It just didn't speak to me emotionally or personally, so I think that's fine. And also good for an Apple film to like be kind of. A lot of the films on Apple, like their series, are great, but a lot of films are things like Fountain of Youth.
I was going to mention Ghosted.
Yeah, these like sort of they're trying to be like blockbuster popcorn films, but they're just really crap versions of that. Yeah. Whereas All of You is a small, intimate, like British-made indie. That's what Apple should be putting on their service. So big ups for that. And then I've also been watching Peacemaker, which has been really good. Season 2 of Peacemaker.
I know you're excited for that.
One more episode to go, and that's been really good. And then I also watched Steve, and that's not just some dude that I'm staring at. Steve is a film on Netflix with Cillian Murphy, and he reunites with his director Tim Mulaney. I think I'm saying his name right. Who did the Small Things Like These film last year? But anyway, Steve is basically Cillian Murphy is Steve, and it's set in the backdrop of Euro '96. You hear that on the radio towards the start, and I'm like, oh, that's quite cool. And he's a head teacher of this like reform school for young offenders, basically. So they've come out of juvie, or they're just I guess disadvantaged, problematic youths, or they've got stuff going on. And he's this head teacher, this remarkable character who's trying to give them a better life and give them a second chance. And he finds out that the school's going to be shut down and he's kind of got to deal with that. He's also got like a student that he's quite close with who's going through some really big personal turmoil. And there's also a documentary being shot at the school, but the film itself kind of is in like that handheld sort of grainy sort of shooting style. And yes, profound sort of examination of mental health as well. So that was a really good film. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, so 2 home cinema events for me recently. One better than the other.
It's funny you mentioned Brett Goldstein, and
Yes,
what did you say that film was called again? Sorry,
All of You.
All of You. Yeah, and he's what is he? Is he a soppy romantic? Is that his sort of character?
Um,
Kind of.
I don't. Yeah,
The only reason that
he's definitely leaning into the more because in that film with the whole you can find out who your soulmate is with this like scientific test, he completely rally against that idea. He hates that idea. He wants to be able to find,
okay.
himself. So yeah, I guess
Because I think that just stood out to me because you mentioned Ted Lasso. I've literally just been watching Ted Lasso before we started recording, when I was doing some writing, in as well because I've already seen Ted Lasso. I think again 2 or 3 times through, so good background television. But his character is just so the opposite of that. He hates everyone and everything, and he's always angry. Bless him. But Brett
yes.
Goldstein, he's got a film podcast as well.
Films to be buried with.
Yeah, which is
Tier podcast content.
very good podcast. Yeah, which actually when I first started writing for Film News Blitz, guys, just a little reminder: go check out the website. We did a team building exercise, didn't we? Where you go through the questions and put them in. So that's all thanks to Brett Goldstein, I think. But yeah, he seems like a really nice guy, and he's a good actor as well. So no complaints, really.
Yeah, I think he's a really good actor. If you haven't watched Shrinking, have you watched Shrinking?
No,
because that's with Bill Lawrence as well, who's the showrunner of Ted Lasso. And Shrinking is amazing, and he comes in. Brett Goldstein comes in it as well in the second series, and his character is so important to the main characters of the show, and that's really good. Definitely worth watching. But anyway, let's talk about the main event, and that is One Battle After Another. Yeah, we've both seen this film, so we're both going to chat about it. I think we should talk quickly about where we saw it, because I wonder whether we had slightly different cinema experiences. So I'm going to fire away to you, Joe. Let us know what's your cinema experience of this film.
So I'm a big Odeon enjoyer. I live about a 20-minute drive and a half an hour bus journey away from my local Odeon. I'm into a very good routine with driving there, and I always get to the same NCP car park. You know how it is.
Nice.
But I managed to drag along some mates with me yesterday. I think there were 5 of us in total.
Okay.
And yeah, it was a good little trip. All sat in a little row together. It was quite cute. The cinemas in the time from Sheffield, the cinemas in the Sheffield Odeon Lux, they're not like huge or anything. There aren't any IMAX screens there, which is a bit of a shame. But staff there are lovely. I think they probably start to recognise me now. It's always clean, and yeah, it's great. It's always a good laugh. Like I enjoy. This is probably like a bit of a weird thing to specifically pick out, but I enjoy the walk from the cinema back to the car park afterwards, because that's when you have like the rawest conversation, I guess, about the film, because you don't have time to properly like think over it. So you just sort of speak in whatever comes to mind first. So I went last night, so we ended up getting back here at about 11 o'clock. So late night viewing, but I had to make sure I'd watched it in time for today. And I think it was worth the late night excursion. So what about yourself?
So I went to see it last week. I was still on holiday from the day job on a Tuesday, and I didn't have anything to do. And I saw my local View cinema, which I don't normally go to, had a showing at 20 to 12 in the morning. So a very random time to go to the cinema.
Yeah.
And I rocked up halfway through the trailers because I'm in an hour and I went on my own, which I actually recommend sometimes is quite a nice therapeutic sort of like, especially if you're like I tried to convince my wife to go see it, and she was like, I'm not really sure about it. And then I came out of it saying, you would have actually really liked that film. You should have gone to see it. But she was busy. She had stuff to do. And I was like, well, I'm not busy. I'm going to go to cinema. So I went on my own, got popcorn, which was way too big for me to eat by myself. But, sat in the middle of the back row, quite a small screen. Again, I think I'd quite like to see it on a bigger format because obviously it's been shot in the VistaVision, the ultra wide, isn't it? So, but I had a pleasant experience. It was a well-behaved audience, being a weekday. It was mainly elderly couples and stuff.
Yeah,
and then a few loners like me.
yeah.
So that was pretty good. But I couldn't debrief with anyone like you could. Were the mates you were with? Are they more your sort of average Joes, or were they proper like average Joes? It's funny because you're called Joe, but you're by no means average. Are they film guys, or are they just more your average punter?
So out of the 5 of us, I think 4 of us have Letterboxd.
Okay.
I think it's partly because I've probably bullied 2 of them into getting it.
Right.
But it's good because it's like you say, it's something to talk about. And like if I see one of my mates, it actually really annoys me. He doesn't write a review for the film; he just gives it a star rating, so you can't comment on his review. So it's like a way that he's like forcing me to message him about whatever rating it is that I agree or disagree with. But yeah, so some of them are, but overall they're probably not as film nerdy as I am. I think they would probably agree with, but definitely they've got solid top 4s that they will argue about from the Letterboxd, and they've got films that that they're happy to have their like, not that there's anything wrong with this, but like a lot of my mates would go to the cinema, and even if the film was a bit crap, they'd be like, yeah, it was good, and then that's kind of enough for them, and that's fine. But I suppose like when you've watched, so this is the other thing about the film for me, is that it's actually the 200th different film I've watched this year.
Wow.
Which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think I've watched 213 in total, so that means I've watched 13 films twice. Probably too many films, but yeah, so number 200 for me, and I don't think they've probably watched 100 this year. So there are levels to this game, guys. There are levels to this game.
That's impressive. You've done really well there. I think that's I can tell you're a student that you've got that much time.
Well, to be fair, a lot of those were days when I'd go to the library and I'd be supposed to be writing my dissertation, and then it'd get to maybe middle of the day, and then I'd be like, right, what films are on at like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock? And then as soon as it got to 3:30, I was like, right, that's me. Done my day of uni, and I think I must have done that. There probably was some weeks where I went to the cinema like 4 times, to be fair.
Anyway, we all know that the last week for your deadline is when you write the dissertation. Anyway, so you got plenty of time to cram it in at the end. So
exactly. I mean, that's when you do your best work, isn't it? So
when you're under pressure, under pressure. That's what I did. I think I probably did maybe 8,500 words of my dissertation in the last week.
Not bad.
Yeah. Thankfully, my final year project was good. My final year grade probably wouldn't have been, because the dissertation was not great. Anyway, before we dive in deeper about what we thought about the film, I figured I should probably give a little brief rundown for what it's about, because otherwise people won't know what we're going on about.
Well, that's true.
So, Leonardo DiCaprio stars as Bob, who's a member of the French 75 revolutionary sort of freedom fighter group who basically free illegal immigrants have been detained by the American military. Things go a bit awry early on in the film, and he has to go into hiding with his very young daughter, Willa. Time jumps forward. Will is now a teenager, and then Sean Penn's Colonel Lockjaw comes back from Leo's past to basically try and kidnap his daughter, and Leo's in a race to basically protect her before something happens to her. That's not good. That's basically the plot, isn't it, really? I don't want to give away too much.
I think you've nailed that.
But thank you. I may have nailed that. I think Paul Thomas Anderson and the cast definitely nailed it with this movie. But yeah, what were your thoughts and feelings on this debrief walk from the Odeon Lux Sheffield to the NCP car park?
Well, is there a spoiler warning on this or not?
So
try and keep it at a minimum.
Let's keep it minimum. Yeah,
Yeah,
for now. Let's go. Maybe if we want to dive into spoilers, we can do that later on.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
My first thought was that considering it's her first film, Chase Infiniti is ridiculously good.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
I can't I genuinely so even when I saw the adverts, it would absolutely have never crossed my mind that she's not been in a proper film before. It's her
Mm.
first credit on Letterboxd, to mention it again. And for me, actually, she's probably the standout performer because she's obviously like the main,
Yeah.
arguably the main character, really.
It's as much her movie as Leo's, isn't it?
Yeah. Obviously, Leo's great as well. I feel like he's sort of rejuvenated himself a little bit.
Mm.
And Sean Penn's great as well. He does a really good job of playing a creepy, kind of weird, corrupt army guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. What was the first? I mean, I suppose what was the first thing? Yeah, what was the first thing that came to your mind as well?
I think the first thing that came to my mind, and quite early on, I was quite happy that it was kind of living up to the hype, because this is one of those films that was really, I felt like it was really being hyped coming into it. Like, obviously, when an actor, the acting ensemble, you're like, okay, right, well, this is a certain type of film. Paul Thomas Anderson as well. I think obviously you see what films he's created in the past that are arguably some of the most iconic of the last 30 years. So, and people saying, is this an Oscar contender, film of the year and all this stuff. And quite early on, I was like, oh, okay, this is living up to the hype. This is a great movie. And also it's like, the trailer was quite ambiguous, I think, in terms of it wasn't giving too much detail about the sequence of events. So that was also a pleasant surprise. And like you say, I think that everybody in it is giving really great performances. Like Leo is doing this amazing sort of paranoid crashing out. It's like the scene in the caravan from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but for the whole film for his character. And as you say, Chase Infiniti is absolutely incredible. I think we could probably see her in a lot. Also, with a really cool, we can see her in a lot more things. And then Sean Penn as Colonel Lockjaw. I was watching the film and I was like, I felt the performance, the physicality of his performance, his weird voice that sometimes sounded a bit like RFK Jr.
Yeah,
I thought this could go. This felt like one of those, like, oh, we're going to be watching edits and clips of this villain for a long time. I feel like he's going to be remembered as one of those classic cinematic villains. And I was like, oh, this is a really interesting. Everything about his character and like the circumstances which were pushing him through the movie from his first scene, which is an interesting scene. People who've watched it will know why. I just thought it was extraordinary.
Caught me by surprise, that, by the way. I was not expecting.
I was not expecting that, and I thought, and so I think we could say this is a spoiler. It's basically Tiana Taylor, who's not in the film as long as I thought she was, who's also really good in the film, and she's Leo's character's partner, girlfriend, wife at the start. The mother of Chase Infiniti's character. She basically gets Sean Penn's character to wank in front of her, and for want of a better word. And I thought that was just going to be like, oh, it's just some. That became quite an integral, pivotal moment. Really, it informed a lot of what Sean Penn's character ended up doing throughout the rest of the movie, which I thought was, an interesting way to go into it. But then it became quite a profound sort of. The motivations of Colonel Lockjaw were like quite remarkable, because this is a guy who's basically a white supremacist, but he has this interesting, problematic obsession with women of color. So that was interesting, but made for a really compelling villain and antagonist, I thought. So those were some of my, and just I thought, I just very much enjoyed this movie. I'm going to throw it back to you to give more thoughts, sir.
Yeah, I agree. I think Sean Penn, when you're talking about how he's put in a clippable performance to sort of summarize it a bit, I've already, before I even saw it, I was seeing TikTok videos about his walk. Because
Yes.
he has a really weird walk where he sort of struts and his arms don't, they move, but they move in a really like formulaic manner, and his shoulders kind of jaunt a bit, and he looks like he's almost like the way I sort of thought of it in my head is every time he takes a step, it looks like he's like reaching for the ground.
Okay.
Instead of it being like a natural walk, he's like trying to find the I don't know, it's just like a weird walk. And obviously he's got like weird facial tics and stuff. Not quite to the level of Barty Crouch Jr. in Harry Potter, but he's got the sort of lip licking teeth. I don't know, just weird facial tics. But again, I think I'm interested to know if he actually just does that. I don't think he does, but I'm interested to know if he was told to do that or if he thought of doing that himself. Yeah, I think he was fantastic. And then again, I don't know if I don't think this spoils anything, but the chase scene towards the end, the car chase, that doesn't really ruin much. I think that was my personal favorite sort of sequence from the film. It does take up a large portion of it, in all fairness. It's not like a surprise opinion, but I think the way that they filmed it I mean, there were no words for a good 10 minutes, 20 minutes chase scene. And you know exactly what's going on all the time. You know exactly what each character is thinking. You hear the villain in that moment's car change gear way too many times. Why is he still gearing up after he's been driving at full max speed for 10 minutes? Why is he gearing up every time we go back to him? But I just thought that was absolutely fantastic. And again, like, it's so, how do I put this? I think it's the mark of like the quality of a film is how much they have to talk to tell you what's going on.
Yes.
And sometimes it's good to have some description, but a lot of the time you don't need to have a character going, "Oh my god, there he is." You don't need that. You can just show it. And I think this scene, especially with the beautiful shots of the camera rising up and over the hills and back down. I've heard some people who saw that on big IMAX screens saying it literally felt like they were on a roller coaster. I mean, that's quite something to pull off just from watching a film. I thought the chase scene by far and away my favorite bit. What was your favorite sort of sequence or part of the film? And you got to pick something else now because I've bagged you.
You've taken the really good one, and it's funny because that was something that I'd seen already clipped up before I went in. Like, this is going to be. It was unbelievably tense as well. There was some really good tense. I mean, the whole film, you're like being, because it's a long film, but I didn't feel like the only time I checked for the time was when I felt like I needed the loo. So it wasn't the film's fault for that. That was me. But I felt like we were being pulled along the film at a really good pace, I thought. And I was constantly like willing the characters on screen to get the positive end result. Which I think is the mark of a good movie as well. My favorite scene beyond the chase scene, I think. I mean, the rooftop scene when Leo's trying to escape, I thought was beautifully shot.
Yeah, with the silhouettes and the shadows and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the whole film was stunning, and I think the ultra wide sort of the way they shot it helped for the expansive vistas that are in the film, but also meant that the more intimate scenes, you could really sort of, the character performances were really shining because they were under such an intense sort of, I guess, microscope. I probably when Colonel Lockjaw and Willa are in the chapel of the nuns bit.
Sanctuary.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
That gun-toting nuns. Great combination, by the way. I'm not complaining.
There was some wild, some interesting characters, weren't there? That I probably put that up there as one of my favourite scenes when we saw those two characters interacting, the implications of their interaction, and sort of why they were in a scene together, and sort of without wanting to go into spoilers, I thought that was really, really good. So I'll say that other than the chase scene.
I've got one other scene.
And the rednecks was good as well.
So I say that again.
The bounty hunter and the rednecks, that was quite a good scene as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, and again, I don't know how I can say this without it being a spoiler. So maybe if I
Can we enter spoiler discussions now?
We could, yeah, we could do. Or if we could try, I go, go to this minute, whatever is here. If you want to skip the next minute of possible spoilers or however long it is. But I was going to say,
idea. I'll do my best in the edit to.
Hopefully, that's not going to be too. I'll give you it there. But the scene where the bounty hunter takes Willa to the place where she'll be made rid of, and you don't hear any words, but when he takes her over and he leaves the key for her handcuffs, and then he walks back to his car and he doesn't leave, and straight away you're thinking he's thinking about what's going to happen next. Is this right? Is this a step too far? And then and then the scene that goes off after that, and that's the sort of, obviously that's the start of the, well, it's midway through the chase scene, really, isn't it? But I just thought that was great, and again, because it's a bit of a sort of character redemption for him. I'm guessing most people would agree that bounty hunting is usually pretty immoral.
Yes.
But yeah, he has his redemption, even though it's a character we don't know anything about. But yeah, I really like that scene, and it's nice to have a moment of, obviously Willa's character does a lot on her own. She does a fantastic job of doing her best to keep herself safe, but to a point, it's nice where you have someone helping you out.
Yeah,
to put it sort of bluntly.
Yeah, that was another scene that I was going to mention as well. Actually, that whole sequence again, when it goes quiet and you're not, it became unbelievably tense.
Yeah,
and at those moments, I was just like willing Willa to be okay. Yeah, and what another thing that I've thought was very good about this film was obviously its sort of social and political commentary, which I think is quite evident given sort of what the French 75 in the film, what they're trying to achieve, which is protect immigrants who've been detained, rightly or wrongly. And then obviously you have Sean Penn's character, who's basically a fascist.
Probably said that fairly confidently.
Yeah, even though he fetishizes black women, so a complicated fascist. And then if we're going into the spoiler, we have the sort of religious cult that he's trying to join. So we have them in there as well. What I found quite stark about it is that I didn't find any of these things unbelievable.
Yeah.
Horrifically, a lot of the points that were being made in the film and a lot of the sort of, I guess, difficult scenes we witness or the difficult questions and debates that are being raised are all very real things that are happening in the world, particularly in America, but not only in America. I think we can probably say that there's things going on in this country that also point to that. But to have that in a film where it's woven into the fabric of the film in a way that is important to the plot, it's important to all the characters involved, and doesn't feel shoehorned in, I think was very, very good. So that's another thing that I took from the film, that I thought, oh wow, this isn't just a film, this is a film that's actually saying something quite profound.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it would be a bad journalistic job from us if we didn't discuss it, really, because it's probably the main theme of the film, isn't it, really? Yeah. And obviously the release of it has been very deliberately timed with, like, sales stuff that's going on in America. The thing that struck me as well was all the stuff going on with the ICE agents, the ICE, how apparently just go into people's houses, sometimes with a warrant, sometimes without. Again, it seems pretty murky to me. But that's sort of looked like what was going on in parts of the film. And I agree that it is important that the film is saying something about that, because it doesn't look very legal to me at any point. And part of the reason why you feel so tense the whole time is because even though they're the police and they're government employed, it still feels like they can just do whatever they want in the film. And that's probably, again, very deliberate, as a bit of a way of saying, look, guys, this actually isn't fiction, really, because this stuff is going on. It's a real problem for a lot of people. Which actually, again, is 100% a reason to respect the film more, because, I mean, for example, one of the reviews I saw was someone saying that they hope that Donald Trump doesn't see it so that he doesn't ban it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got to worry about that, then what does that say about this? What does it say in general? Yeah, I 100% agree. That's a pretty important point of the film, is that the social impacts of it.
Yeah, and I think also you talk about that it's a film that has a time jump in it in the first act of 15, 16 years. And the issues that are prevalent at the start of the film are still prevalent, if not more so, when it does the time jump.
So nothing has changed in that time.
Yeah, it's holding up like a horrific mirror to reality. Is probably one way of putting it. We haven't even talked about Benicio del Toro's contribution to this film.
We haven't
either, which I think again is the sensei, which was again an incredible. The ensemble cast, from no matter how big or small the roles were, everybody in this film was kind of like firing on all cylinders. I think you have one of the military personnel that was kind of working underneath Sean Penn's character, the one who was doing all the interrogations. Feel bad that I don't know the actor's name, but his performance was particularly impressive, I thought, as well. Like, oh, this guy's really quite... Like, I'm scared of this guy.
Yeah, he's terrifying.
The characters that he's talking to is like... And then that goes into what we're talking about, isn't it? That sort of... the threat of people that are meant to be in institutions designed to protect rather than intimidate. Yes. Right. Let's talk now about if there was anything about the film that you thought didn't quite tick with yourself. I'll let you go first, because I came out of it thinking I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 stars, and wasn't particularly put off by any of the anything that was on offer. So
for me, I gave it a 4.5, which I wouldn't be surprised if I end up changing it to a 5, or if I rewatch it and give it a 5. And again, I'm not offended by anyone that's giving it a 5. I'm not. The problems that I have with it aren't so bad that I'm going to be like, you're wrong. Because for other films, definitely everyone's wrong. Why is everyone not just agreeing with me? But for this, the only thing really that I wasn't a big fan of was the conclusion of Perfidia's storyline. I get that she disappears, but then, and again, I think at this point we've just given up with the spoilers for this end of the video, haven't we? I think whilst her letter to Willa was beautiful, and the bit about her saying, I hope you change the world like I did, or I hope you try and change the world like I did, is beautiful. But part of me wants to see her again, because like you said, we don't really see Perfidia for that long. She's obviously a very impactful character. You know, we see her and we understand what's going on with her, and we see her interact with Sean Penn, or Lieutenant. Is it Lieutenant Lockjaw? Sergeant Lockjaw?
Colonel Lockjaw.
Colonel Lockjaw. So that's the one, yeah. Colonel Lockjaw. So we see her character do all the things that she needs to do to tick off the story. But I think I just would have preferred it if we saw her again at the end, maybe. I don't know. I know that's probably picking holes, but I remember, like, after the whole letter thing, I was sort of like, I don't know. It feels like a shame that for such an important character to everything that's gone on in this film, we don't see her again, even if it's just in something arbitrary like a flashback or because I know that it's a lot to ask to say, oh, we should meet her again at the end and she should be reunited with her family. I don't actually think that's the right thing to do, but for some reason, part of me just feels like it's incomplete. And I think one of the things I said to one of my friends on the debrief walk back to the car park was that the film, and not this isn't necessarily a really bad thing, but it felt like it was a prequel to Chase. It feels like we've had a film about Willa, maybe even just like a film called Willa would just aesthetically be quite pleasing, like in terms of the name. But she definitely could have a film on her own, and it just kind of feels like One Battle After Another. There's like a prequel for that in a way, and again, that's not a hugely bad thing, but part of me then, because of that, kind of wants to see, I don't know, sort of some recognition of that. I don't know, maybe I'm waffling a bit and maybe I'm picking holes, but that was the thing that struck me as maybe something I would improve if I had to pick something.
Yeah, I'd say my counterpoints would be, and yeah, we're into the spoiler conversations really. So Perfidia, Tiana Taylor's character, Willa's mum, she's the one that basically causes the whole fuck up at the start in the first act, because there's a mission by the French 75 that goes wrong. Perfidia gets captured, and then Colonel Lockjaw's obsession with her gives her an out, where she basically starts ratting, as other characters say, ratting people out who are part of the revolutionary group. That's why everybody has to go in hiding. Perfidia goes into witness protection, and then she's like, don't really fancy this life, and then she crosses the border into Mexico, never to be seen again. So my first counterpoint to your argument of having her turn up again, or then maybe being reunited, is logistically would be quite difficult for the characters involved unless Willa went to Mexico. But then she'd have to know where she is, which she doesn't.
Yeah.
And you could maybe argue that out of trying to protect her daughter, she's not going to give up where she is. You could maybe say that. I feel like the baton's passed at that point. When Perfidia crosses the border, the baton's passed from her story to Willa's story anyway. And I think maybe for want of, Perfidia's story is kind of complete, I also, the prequel suggestion is interesting. I kind of feel a little bit like maybe the message that the film is saying is like, unfortunately, like, the title, One Battle After Another, like Willa goes off, isn't she? Right at the end of the film, she's going off to where, there's an incident happening, and either she's going to protest or she's going to like actively engage. I get the sense that she's not going to be as violent a revolutionary as her parents were. I feel like she might be more of a peaceful protester. I don't know.
I don't know if I agree with that. I get the opposite. Well, not necessarily the opposite, but
she's like driving there like a Ford Fiesta and stuff.
Yeah,
and got, like,
but she's killed someone. She shot someone 3 times to kill them.
They were trying to kill her.
Oh, she had every right to do it. Don't get me wrong.
Yes, more self-defense.
But for some reason that says to me that she's not she knows what it is to be in a war, and she knows what it is to have your life on the line. And part of me thinks that from then she's ready to go. If she needs to, she's ready to do it.
Yeah, but I kind of, back to your point of it being a prequel or like to what Willa's, I think we just know what Willa's story is going to be. Like, it's going to be, as the title of the film suggests, it's just going to be one battle after another, trying to make an impact. And I think maybe the film's trying to say that, like, we kind of live in a world where these small actions by revolutionaries are sort of maybe losing the battle against the machine of society, perhaps, for a sort of downbeat, sort of depressing message, maybe. But the fact that there's always going to be people like Willa who are continuing to act. One thing, I wouldn't say this is a gripe, because I don't really have any gripes with the film, but I found it interesting that they've been in hiding for 15 years. They are, by the letter of the law, they are criminals. Especially Leo's character, but he's like playing with an iPhone at the end and like trying to take a selfie with it. And I'm like, you're still, maybe they don't have a SIM card in, but you're still like fugitives. You haven't pulled a Fast and Furious and done a mission for The Rock or anything like here. You haven't had your slate cleaned. I was like, oh, okay, he's kind of really chill with putting himself out in the world now. Maybe he just thinks he's so inconsequential that it doesn't really matter because he's basically become a stoner, isn't he? So
I guess my another tiny thing would be that they seemed to be able to work out. So Lockjaw seemed to be able to work out exactly where Willow was very quickly. I don't know why that took 16 years, or maybe he realized something else, or maybe I'm just forgetting something, but he seemed to pinpoint that almost straight away as soon as we found out his character's looking for them again. Maybe that's just because he only needed to start looking for them again at that point.
Yes, well, it's the reason I guess he's not interested in the intermediate period is because he's being invited into that religious sect, isn't he?
Right. Yeah.
But they're like, oh, have you had any improper, like any relations with people of color or anything? Like they're going to do a background check, and it's at that point he's like, oh shit, I need to go clean house.
True.
Which is what gets him to go after them. And I guess because he's always had an obsession, or like he's already had run-ins with them. He knows how to find them, and I guess he's got a lot of means at his disposal to find them. So I guess that's how he finds them really quickly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
and I suppose the only other this is a tiny gripe, but so obviously when Willa goes to the dance, and Bob is like, no, you need to take the tracker. And she's like, no, it's so stupid. But she eventually agrees. And obviously that's supposed to be that she doesn't really understand the gravity of her, really. She doesn't understand how important she is and how dangerous a situation they could be in if she does actually find herself needing the tracker. And then when she's at the dance, the tracker obviously goes off. And in that moment in my head, that should be a tick in the box. This is really important. I need to switch on. And then I can't remember what her name is, but the lady asks her if she has a phone. Why then would she not say that she does? Like in my head, surely, because she's not a stupid character. She's the opposite. She's a very intelligent character. How is she not twigged that she needs to say that? Like if she has a phone, she needs to give that up right now. That's my. I don't know. That's a tiny thing, and obviously, if she didn't have the phone, it wouldn't have helped the story continue the way it was going to. But again, in my head, that's just another tiny thing.
Yeah, I guess we could maybe attribute that to like she started to believe, but maybe she's not quite not quite understood the gravity of the situation. Perhaps that would be maybe because that's like her first instance of going like, oh shit, this is real.
Yeah, true.
So maybe I think the Willa at the end, or like 30 minutes from the end of the film, wouldn't have made that decision. Would be what I'd say about that. So we kind of alluded to it, didn't we, earlier on, that it'd been touted as one of the films of the year. So my question to you, and the question that I will ask myself, is it the film of the year? Or rather than say that, because film is subjective, so we can't really say it's the film of the year. Is it your film of the year?
I reckon I'm happy to let you go first on this one. So I've got just a quick second to jog my memory of all the films I've seen this year, but I'm happy to let you take this one.
Okay. I can't remember when, because we had you on for the Nolan chat, and I asked you the question what your favourite film of the year so far has been. Can you remember what you said?
I cannot remember. No. Maybe Sinners.
See, that was mine.
Yeah.
And I still think that is mine because as amazing as One Battle After Another is, and another thing about that car scene, actually, that felt like I was watching like a grand old western or something. That was like, especially the setting and beautiful. As great as it is, and as good as a message is, I still felt from maybe like story beats. I don't know. I still felt there was still something kind of familiar about it. Like it wasn't wholly something like, "Whoa, I've never seen a film like this before." Whereas I felt like Sinners, and I think maybe this is to do with the cultural differences between myself as, Caucasian, watching the film, Sinners being a lot about the experience of Black America being Black Americans, and sort of especially in the time period it's set. So that was teaching me something as a cinema viewer, and felt like something that I hadn't seen. And it's sort of genre blending, the musicality of it, the dual performances of Michael B. Jordan. I felt like there was more, and not even by a long way, but it felt like there was more original thinking going on in Sinners than there was One Battle After Another. But they're both amazing movies, and it's marginal differences in terms of ranking. But I would still have Sinners as my favourite film of the year so far, or best film of the year so far, or whatever. Yeah.
I think so. My top 3 of the year would be Sinners, One Battle After Another, and then I think I said Warfare.
You did say Warfare, correct?
And it's interesting because you say about how
So is
like
that your
Sinners
top
is,
3 ascending or descending?
I suppose in no specific order. I guess I'm probably going to work it out in my head as I talk through them. But
Cool.
you're right, and I 100% agree that for me, Sinners feels very unique. I what I was expecting to watch before I went in compared to what I had watched by the time I left was those two things were two separate things. I had no idea where it was going. I hadn't done my research on it or anything beforehand. I didn't really know what was going on. And I would agree, there are lots of films that do the same sort of thing as Warfare and One Battle After Another. Dramatic chase scene. There are loads of films that do the socio-political stuff as well. And obviously with Warfare, there are loads of war films. So actually, maybe you're right. I think Sinners is probably a very good shout for number one. I'm trying to think what I just purely enjoyed the most, and I think for that I probably would go Warfare because I love a good war film. I love a good action film, and for me, I just love the way it was in real time, and I'm a really big fan. I've forgotten his name's gone from my head. I'm a huge fan of Will Poulter. I think before I watched this, I just happened to have watched Maze Runner like the day before, and for some reason, I just love. I think Will Poulter's proper quirky character. I think his eyebrows are great.
Incredible.
A very iconic look to him, and I just think he's a good actor. So for me, I probably would go with Warfare, although I completely understand that that's not a popular pick. But also, the director of Warfare is the director of one of my favorite films, which is Civil War. So for some reason, maybe it's just placebo. I thought it was going to be good, and it was. Maybe it was just, yeah. But it's on. I need to rewatch it because I think it's on Prime. Maybe
is it?
Warfare. There's a way of it's Prime or Netflix, maybe. But I need to rewatch it. But yeah, I think I'll just about go with Warfare. But One Battle After Another is certainly not far behind. I'll definitely say that.
And I think in terms of if we're looking at awards season, it has the favourability of coming out. Sinners, what's against Sinners is that in terms of the awards year of eligibility, it's very early, and that's never really worked in favour for a lot of films. Because I think both of them are going to be nominated for Best Picture when it comes to the Oscars, but that might tip into One Battle After Another's favour of the fact that it's come out a bit later in that moment of time. It's interesting you mentioned things set in real time. There's a film that you should definitely watch if you can find it. It's called Victoria, if you've not seen it before. And it didn't come out too... It's a German language film. And Victoria, she's basically... I think she's like clubbing in Berlin or something. And then she basically gets sort of... She gets talking to these guys, and then they get her to be a getaway driver for like a heist. And it's 2 hours... and it is legitimately done in one take.
Yeah.
It's not like 1917 or Birdman where there are a couple of cuts. There is no cuts in this movie. It is absolutely phenomenal. and I think they did like a rehearsal run through on when they went to shoot, and then they shot it, and they got it in the second run through. Is the film? That's
Have you seen Cleo from 5 to 7?
I've not seen Cleo from 5 to 7
because I think so. It's a 1962 film, and I believe it's also set in real time. It's not like one take or anything, but it's about Cleo, obviously, who I believe it's a French film. I've seen it, but she's played by Corinne Marchand, and basically her character, I think she finds out some interesting news at the start of the film, and I think the rest of the film is basically her coming to terms with it and coming to terms with almost like the meaning of life. But yeah, I suppose that's another one the other one that came to mind if we're talking about film, and I enjoyed that one. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. It's a good film, but it's widely regarded. It's 4.2 on Letterboxd on average. It's a classic film, and if you like a one shot or an in real time, and especially a foreign language film as well, then yeah, I mean, we really sound like film nerds right now. Recommending a German speaking and a French speaking film to one another, that's quite crazy.
Yeah, well, I think they're worth watching.
Yeah,
to expand one's horizons.
Yeah.
Also, because you mentioned you really like Alex Garland, I'm assuming you've seen Ex Machina.
I actually haven't.
You're not?
I know. It's bad for me. It's bad for me.
I really enjoy that film. It's like, do you know the premise?
Is it where she's a robot who works for?
Yeah. So Oscar Isaacs is like this tech genius, and Domhnall Gleeson, I think, works for one of his companies and wins a prize to go to his like retreat. It's basically like looks like the poshest Center Parcs lodge you've ever seen in your life. And Alicia Vikander is this like android robot, and basically Oscar Isaacs has got Domhnall Gleeson there to basically do the Turing test on her, and, like test her like her artificial intelligence and stuff like that. And it's just the three of them really, and then like just one building with like a couple of different rooms and stuff. So very short amount of setting or scenes and stuff like that. Very good film. Very good film. I really enjoy it when there's a film with like a tight premise with only like a couple of key characters, or just a couple of characters in general.
Yeah,
and we're in a small location, but they can make something cinematic out of it. So
I would not have guessed that was by Alex Garland. To be honest, It doesn't seem like the same. Well, it's obviously not similar to Civil War and Warfare, but I'll definitely give that a go.
I think it's. I may be chatting guff, but that might be his first official directing.
Okay.
Because I know that he wrote Judge Dredd, but I know that it's known that he went on to then basically finish the directing of that movie or took over a lot of the directing of that movie. But I believe Ex Machina as a director may have been his debut. I'm going to look on IMDb. Yes, it is. 2014. Okay. Gosh, a long time ago. Hour and 48 minutes as well.
Okay. So fairly digestible, one might say.
Good little runtime. And also, because it's only like 3 characters and only a couple of locations, the fact that you're not watching it on a big screen for the first time isn't like a disappointment. You know, there's some films where it's like, oh, you've really got to catch them in cinema for the first time. Like One Battle After Another was one of them. And it's one that I think I need to go watch again on like a big screen. I haven't got any IMAXs around, but there's a showcase with like an X Plus, which is a very big screen. So I might do that. I mean, I might treat myself to an IMAX. I'm sometimes, London's not that far away, so that's probably I think that's my nearest one. I'm not sure. So maybe. I don't think. Have we got any? Because there's not many being shown in this division, because they've shot it in this division, and there's like a handful of places you can actually watch it where they're presenting it in this division as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
It hasn't been done since 1961.
Huh.
Which
so is you were what, like 10 years old around then?
Ah, very good.
Thank you. Getting the practice.
Right.
I have one last question.
Go for it.
Which is, and we're assuming that there are only 2 nominees for this award category. You're talking about the Oscars.
Yeah.
If we're assuming that the only 2 nominees for the best supporting actor or actress, because I know they're 2 separate awards,
Yep.
if it's between Sean Penn and Chase Infiniti for these roles, who would you pick? Or another person from the cast, I suppose.
I mean, luckily, they're going to be in separate categories when it comes to reality. But you've given me a tricky question. And I could arguably see them winning both. But there's other films to come that might challenge that. I will go with Sean Penn.
Oh.
Not by much.
Yeah.
I think one, I feel like quite a lot of weight could be put behind him in terms of campaigning, and that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
So in terms of my objective opinion, that goes there. But my subjective opinion, Chase Infiniti's performance is amazing, but Sean Penn is doing an incredible performance, but he's also giving it something extra as well, like the things with the facial tics, the physical.
Okay.
There's more. I think there's more ingredients going into his performance, and that's not a criticism of Chase Infiniti, but that's the little extra bit of criteria that I give to give him the edge.
You know what? That's a very good reason. I can't really argue against that. And actually, that's a very good point. And I suppose actually, because one of my reasons, if I was going to pick Chase Infiniti, which I think I was going to, one of them would have been that it's her first film. But actually, for some reason, when you put it like that, it sort of reminds me that she's probably going to be in quite a lot of good films. We hope, anyway. We've seen actors do big things when they're a bit younger and then not carry that on. But I get the impression, I hope, fingers crossed, as I do for all young actors as well, that their success will continue, hopefully. So she'll probably, hopefully, be nominated for an award, for a Film News Blitz award, which obviously is the most important award season.
Exactly.
Later down the line. Whereas Sean Penn, I don't know if has he got,
He has got an Oscar, I think. Let's have a look let's consult IMDb again. Do you know the clip keep seeing of him? Oh, also, talking of the Long Walk, is it David Johnson? David Johnson? Is he the?
Yes.
I keep seeing clips popping up again of Rye Lane, the British indie rom-com that he's in.
Yeah,
came out either last year or the year before. If you haven't watched Rye Lane, I think it's on Prime. Watch it; it's absolutely brilliant. Just putting that out into the world.
Yes. 2 20-somethings, both reeling from bad breakups.
And they just got to walk. And yeah, it's another walking film, but there's more stuff.
He was my standout from The Long Walk. One of my criticisms, I know we're not talking about the film too much, but I didn't think the acting in it was that good. It wasn't bad, but I didn't think it was superlative acting. But I did think that David Johnson was a very believable and likable character. And also, I feel like he was just like a realistic person in the scenario of the film. Because some of the other people were acting a bit, I don't know, like if this happened in the real world, I don't know why they would do certain things, but I felt like his character was well acted and logical. And so, yeah, any David Johnson, I'm excited to see what he gets up to going forward as well.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether potentially, because he was in the last Alien movie. There are talks of doing a sequel to that, and talks of trying to maybe retain some of the key characters. So maybe he'll reprise his role as the android. Sean Penn is a 2-time Oscar winner, Best Actor in a leading role for both films, Mystic River and Milk.
Okay,
Mystic River is the one I keep seeing on Instagram where he's like screaming, "Is that my daughter in there?" Yeah, Bacon's looking at him like, "Fuck, this guy's really going for it." So
because I've seen he's in the Thin Red Line as well, which obviously is a pretty good film, for probably fair to say that fairly objectively.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who he's an incredible actor, but a strange dude.
Yeah,
he falls into that category, but that's quite a populist category as well. I think.
Yeah, probably.
Yes. Right. I think one final question before we wrap up. What are you looking forward to seeing next?
Undeniably, the Smashing Machine. I really hope that The Rock is good in it because he seems like a really nice guy in the real world. And I like the idea of him doing a film that's a bit more serious. And I think he's pretty perfectly cast. He is someone who's been in obviously the WWE and that industry, which obviously, whilst it is very different to the UFC, also isn't for many reasons, which I don't need to explain. But yeah, so I hope that's the one I'm really looking forward to going and seeing. And I want to persuade one of my mates is really skeptical. He's like, "Why would I go and see it? It's got The Rock in it. It's going to be terrible." And I'm like, "No, please have some faith." It got applauded for 14 minutes or whatever it was at Cannes or whatever, or the film festival. Please be good. So that's mine. What about you?
Yeah, that's also mine, and I'm trying to convince Eden, my wife, to go watch it. I think it has, from what I've read, he's done well, which is really good. And it's a Benny Safdie directed movie famously of the Safdie brothers, because they've split because his brother, because they normally direct together, but his brother's doing that table tennis sports biopic with Timothée Chalamet.
Oh yes, yeah, I saw the advert for that yesterday.
I can't remember what's that bloody called.
It's called like the bit.
All right, let's type it.
About taking a chance, maybe. I know that's it's just not the name of it, but
it is called. IMDb is really saving us here. We could maybe say Chase Infiniti could be at the beginning of her Timothée Chalamet-esque journey.
Yeah,
because he obviously started off in things like Interstellar as a really strong supporting, and then he's gone on
Marty Supreme.
Marty Supreme. There we go.
Marty Supreme.
Found it quicker than I did.
Yeah,
fingers could not.
Up Letterboxd.
Well, there we go.
This is not sponsored, by the way, guys. I'm not being sponsored to say I like Letterboxd.
Be nice.
It's shameful.
But show your friend Uncut Gems.
Okay.
That should convince, because that's a great movie by the Safdie brothers, and that should convince them to want to watch The Smashing Machine.
Okay. That's a good idea, actually, because obviously Adam Sandler has had an interesting film career. He's had some pretty bad films, some very good ones as well. Obviously, like Uncut Gems. So I suppose hopefully it'll be proof that that Benny Safdie can turn an actor from one thing into something very different.
There we go. What a beautiful place to wrap things up. Cool. That means we just got to tell people to do their likes and subscribes, and their follows as well. Yeah, clicking I do actually put them in the bottom, so it was good that you pointed that way. Read what we've got to say on Film News Blitz, www.thefilmnewsblitz.com, and we're on all the socials at Film News Blitz. So Joe, thanks for joining me.
Been a pleasure.
Listeners, viewers, thank you for joining us. Adios.
Goodbye.